Good morning, everybody. Great to see a full room here. This isn't really a room, is it? But in any case, all of you have taken time out of your schedules, out of what you contribute to our community, frankly, to be here. It's deeply appreciated. We are here to discuss the broader criminal justice reform introduced by the government of Mark Carney and obviously through the Minister of Justice, Sean Fraser, this morning. But I would be extremely remiss, actually, to not acknowledge and frankly celebrate and thank all of you for the outstanding contributions you make day in and day out as staff members of London Hydro. Police, paramedics, firefighters, first responders, they get the due that they deserve, of course. We can never thank them enough for the contributions they make. But we had a series of weather events this year, in particular I'm thinking of the ice storm, that really challenged our city. And all of you stood up in ways that we can never probably thank you for. So on behalf of myself, frankly on behalf of the Government of Canada writ large, thank you very much for the work that you do and the work that you did. We hold you in our debt. Give yourselves a round of applause for that. You took time away from your families, your friends, and you responded in a very important way. As I say, we are here to talk about the broader criminal justice reform that the government has introduced. A part of that is responding to copper theft. The effects of copper theft in terms of the cost for businesses, for households, this is very significant across Canada, and London has felt the effects. Mr. Fraser will articulate that in a moment, talk about how the government is putting in place very serious reform, unseen before, in fact. But first, I want to invite to the podium my colleague, Member of Parliament for London West, Arielle Kayabaga. Arielle was elected as a city councillor to begin with, served London for 4 years before becoming a Member of Parliament in 2021, and she also serves as the Deputy House Leader of the government in Ottawa. Arielle, come to the podium and share a few remarks.
Bonjour tout le monde, good morning. Thank you so much, Peter, for the kind welcome. I'm actually really excited to be here. It's my first time being in this place. I never knew what it looked like. It is amazing inside. I feel like my only engagement with London Hydro is usually on my bill, when I pay my bill, you know, the London Hydro monthly bill, or when there's disasters, as Peter has mentioned, and all of our lights go out. And what a incredible comms team. I don't know if the comms team is here. Your comms team is awesome. Every single time we tweet at you, you respond immediately and you engage us and you make sure that we have timely information, especially in moments where, you know, families who have children, like it's the winter and the lights are out and it's cold and you're kind of worried about what's going to happen, if you're going to be able to cook a meal or if your kids are going to start complaining that they're cold. I'm so grateful to the help that you give us, to, you know, the break we also get from our kids being on their phones and on the screens in that time. And when I tell them, like, they said 2 hours, it's so great to see the reaction on their faces when they hear they said 2 hours, and you do come through with the 2 hours. So as my colleague said, great round of applause to your teams and the help that you give our entire community every single day. It is not unnoticed, and I'm actually super excited to be here and see the real people behind the bill and the chats online. As Peter said, we're very excited to welcome our colleague, Minister Fraser. It's very nice to be here with Mayor Morgan and your CEO, I'm going to say your name wrong, but I apologize, Semsedini. Did I say that right? Okay. And all of our municipal partners and law enforcement and our colleagues for being here today. I want to start by saying something simple. When steel copper from hydro substation, they're not just, when people are stealing steel copper, they're not just stealing metal, they're putting our community at risk. They're knocking out power at homes, to hospitals, to traffic lights, to families who depend on that infrastructure every single day. And this is not a victimless crime. It is a dangerous and it is organized. Here in London, we have seen the impact firsthand: disrupted services, costly repairs, real safety risk for the workers and first responders who deal with the aftermath. And that's why I'm so proud that our government has passed Bill C-14, the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act. Out of the many reform acts that we're making in the justice system, this one really hits home for our community. And this legislation gives our courts a new tool. When theft or mischief damages our central infrastructure, the courts must now treat it as an aggravating factor at a sentencing, and that means that there will be tougher consequences for those who put our communities at risk. And copper theft is not just one piece of this bill. C-14 is also taking aims at the crimes that hit close to home for families here in London: auto theft, home break-ins, retail theft, hurting local businesses, crimes against the first responders and transit workers who keep our city moving every single day. Tougher bail and tougher sentences, a justice system that takes these crimes as seriously as our communities do. Now, you may have heard a lot of chatter, whether it was from the opposition. The Conservatives have claimed that they are the party of law and order. When it counted, they were not there. They did not vote. They voted against these measures. They voted against protecting critical infrastructure that play a huge role in our lives. They played politics with public safety, and they have had years in government and left communities like ours without the tools that we needed. Law and order is not a slogan. It's a responsibility that we all have, and they walked away from it, and our government did not. We're sending a clear message today. If you target our community, you will be held accountable. But this is not just about the penalties. It's about the partnership, the relationships. It's about supporting our law enforcement, protecting our public assets, and keeping the people of London and our communities across Ontario safe and across Canada. I want to recognize the leadership of our Justice Minister, whose work on this file has been very serious and substantive and squarely focused on what communities actually need. Bills like C-14 do not pass on their own. I also want to recognize our House Leader team who shepherded this and many other pieces of legislation through a very demanding parliamentary session. Their discipline and their coordination made it possible for our caucus and our entire team, Liberal team, to deliver week after week on commitments that matter to people in places like where we are today. So it is my pleasure to see Minister Fraser join us here in our city today. Minister, I hope you have enjoyed London, and I know that your message and the work that you've done will resound in our communities here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Arielle. Next, I'm going to call on Mayor Josh Morgan to come to the podium. Mayor Morgan has served our community since 2014, first as a city councillor, and since 2022 as the mayor of the City of London. He is an outstanding community advocate, it goes without saying, and one of the groups that we worked with, in fact, on the criminal justice reform, including, and I'd say in particular, copper theft, are mayors. Mayors were very vocal on this, and the government, as I say, engaged with them, met with them, and acted in a way to respond to what we all see and what you just heard. So Mayor Morgan, please join us and share your thoughts.
Well, thank you very much, Peter, and appreciate saying a few words today. I'll say three things. First, I'm going to recognize Councillor Rahman in the front row, who is our representative on London Hydro's board of directors. I appreciate the work that you do as that liaison between council and this really important publicly owned utility here in our city who does critical work. And that's really the first thing I want to say. I want to echo the comments. As I've stood here many times before speaking to the employees of London Hydro, I echo the comments that were said today about the incredible work you do. And it's not just the people on the front lines who go out there, get called in when we need to get the power back on, but it's the entire team and support staff who work in this organization who make sure that, this is an organization that can respond quickly, that is building infrastructure that is resilient and reliable, and that as we grow the city, we know the power will be there and there's good people on the grounds. You are part of our economic development team. London Hydro is critical to us being able to recruit key industrial partners, make jobs in this city, and keep the power on for everybody. So first and foremost, thank you to the work that you do for us. Second, and I have to say this because Minister Fraser has been to the city a couple of times. I remember the one time when you came and you brought $74 million for the Housing Accelerator Fund. That was pretty great. I don't know if you have any checks today, but we're always happy to take some. But we were first to get housing accelerator funds, and the minister was there, and we were standing in a building that was under construction. And I want the minister to know, not only have we, I know, although a different portfolio, met our housing accelerator targets, we've exceeded them each and every year. And that building that we stood in when you made that announcement for the first time across Canada is a building that is complete, that people are living in, and that is thriving in that part of our community. And so to the partnership we've had with the federal government on that, and particularly Minister Fraser, I'm very grateful. On the bail reform legislation, Peter's right. This is something that we were advocating for quite vigorously. And it wasn't just mayors. It was police chiefs, municipal councils. It was through the advocacy I do on Ontario big city mayors and federal big city mayors, where I am the chair. We have been asking very clearly for legislative reform. We know the system was quite broken. We see it on the grounds. And in municipalities, we can be great partners to the federal and provincial governments on the ground, seeing what's happening, seeing what's working and what's not. And I got to give kudos where it's deserved, and that is, this is a case where the government listened very clearly, brought forward very clear legislation, brought it into effect, and now we have a situation where not only are violent and repeat offenders going to have the reverse onus on them, they're going to have to make that case to the judge on why they should be out on bail, rather than the onus being on the Crown attorneys to say why they should be held. And so that is the way it should be, because we've seen far too often violent repeat offenders out on bail committing new crimes in our communities across this country. Kudos to the government for making that change. And on the critical infrastructure piece, the legislation that recognizes critical infrastructure like copper, like utilities, like London Hydro, we know that there is a massive problem with theft. And when that theft happens, it disrupts business for all sorts of people. It disrupts, as MP Kayabaga said, it disrupts critical infrastructure, it disrupts people in their homes, it disrupts healthcare, traffic signalization, everything that power supplies. This is something that should have elevated status within the criminal code and within legislation, and we are very thankful that we can protect that critical infrastructure in a new way. And thanks to the innovations that London Hydro is making with some of the new technology they're putting in place, so we can be alerted before it even gets there. But once you're alerted, once the police come, once they catch the bad guys, there needs to be serious consequences for people tampering with critical infrastructure in this community. So with that, thank you again for all that you do. Thank you again to the government for this incredible legislation. We look forward to it being in effect, and our cities and our streets being safer because of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And next, I'll invite the Honourable Sean Fraser, Minister of Justice, to share remarks. First of all, this is someone who I've known and worked with since 2015. He is a very talented politician, certainly, a great member of Parliament, excellent minister, but a very good person more than anything else. This is someone that has advanced what has been called the most significant criminal justice reform in the past 25 years. The copper theft that we are focusing on today is one of a series of measures that the government has introduced through Sean. The result is safer communities, frankly. You heard the remarks now on bail reform, the response that the government is giving with this legislation to dealing with violent offenders, in particular, strengthening penalties for violent offenses. And Sean will articulate that further in a moment. But he was elected, as I say, in 2015. He's a graduate of Dalhousie University and its law program. He served as a lawyer in Calgary, working in private practice, and has since that time served the community of Central Nova, which was never really liberal until Sean Fraser came along. But he's done a great job, re-elected now 4 times, and we're very fortunate to have him in this role. Thank you, Minister Fraser, and join us.
Look, thanks very much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Peter, for the very kind introduction. Working with you and Arielle in Ottawa has been a tremendous privilege. And to those of you who call the City of London home, I know that you have a couple of tremendous representatives who are constantly on my case about what we can do to better serve the residents of this city. I just want to reflect on the Mayor's comments. Josh, you've been a tremendous partner from the moment that we first had an opportunity to meet. He didn't tell you when he relayed some of the successes of the funding we delivered for housing that Josh was actually the first person who engaged with us on what more cities can do to make it easier to build homes more quickly. And when we wrote a letter to him asking him to increase the ambition on 3 specific areas, he said, well, 2 of them we've already done. We just didn't think it was worth putting in the letter, but we'll say yes to the 3rd one as well. And that's the spirit of partnership when you have different levels of government working together that allows you to get things done for your community. You know, when you show up at an announcement like this, you never really know what to expect, and I'm kind of shocked to see the entire staff of London Hydro here today. I'm just praying we don't have a citywide power outage in the middle of our event. It would go very poorly for those of us who are here to share some news about the work that the government's doing. But I want to just reflect on the process of getting to a very important law that has been adopted by the Parliament of Canada, both the House of Commons and Senate, just a week ago. This is about the government's public safety agenda. We have heard loud and clear from residents of every community in this country that people want to see more aggressive action when it comes to keeping our communities safe. The strategy that we've adopted rests on 3 key pillars. The first is to adopt stronger criminal laws. The second is to make sure that we give the tools to the front line to make sure that they can investigate, prosecute, and convict where crimes have taken place in our communities. And the third is to make sure that we take a long-term view, making the upstream investments in things like affordable and supportive housing and mental health and addictions, programs for at-risk youth, so we can help end violent crime in the long term. But as we make those investments, we know that we have to respond more quickly to the very real and acute challenges that communities are facing today. This is where the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act comes in. We undertook a process beginning last summer to engage with those who live closest to the problems that we're trying to solve. This means working with law enforcement. It means working with provincial governments. It means listening to the feedback that we've heard directly from mayors and councillors who represent communities in every corner of this country. One of the things that we heard without qualification was the need to treat more seriously the phenomenon of violent repeat offenders. Too often, we've seen people who commit crimes be released often the same day, only to reoffend. We have to change our laws, and we now have changed our laws to ensure that the criminal code reflects the desire of communities to take more seriously the challenges when it comes to violent repeat offenders. But it wasn't just the bail system that we heard feedback on. From cities and from those who operate our essential infrastructure, we heard loud and clear that there was a shortcoming in the criminal code. You see, when somebody steals copper, for example, or other aspects of essential infrastructure, they're often charged with a crime that ties to the value of the thing that they stole. In the criminal code, you'll find that there are smaller penalties for theft of goods that are worth $5,000 or less. But when you actually do damage to our critical infrastructure, endanger the public, the economic consequences to communities can very quickly reach into the millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. When you think about damage that can be done to our transit systems, to our electricity grids, or to our telecommunication networks, it doesn't take long to realize that this is not a small-time petty crime. There are very real consequences, not only for individuals who rely on these systems, but for entire communities. When you see damage to bridges from electrical fires, you see traffic gets shut down for sometimes days at a time while workers are out doing the repair. When you see telecommunication networks that come down, the damages can quickly reach into the hundreds of millions of dollars when businesses don't have the ability to continue to operate the way that they have been accustomed to and upon which their systems rely. The change that we made into the criminal code introduces several new aggravating factors. This includes attacks against our first responders in the line of duty. It includes organized retail crime, but importantly for today's purposes, it includes crimes that are committed against our essential infrastructure. The message that we want to communicate to those who are considering taking part in copper theft or damaging our essential infrastructure is if you damage our transit networks, putting the economic well-being and the safety of your community at risk, if you do damage to our electricity grids and don't allow our communities to have access to the power that they need, or if you take down our telecommunication networks, you should expect a stiffer sentence. The time has come to communicate very clearly that there should be a deterrent in the criminal code for people who commit these very serious crimes. As a result of this law being passed, we expect by mid-July these measures will be enforced, and the penalties for damage to our essential infrastructure will be far more serious than they are today. I want to say thank you sincerely to those who work to help power this community and to help grow its economy every day, to the workers who've joined us for the announcement, both in front and behind me. Thank you for what you do. You are an essential part of the well-being of this community, and it's workers like you who help power the economy across Canada. If I could conclude with one final thought. This legislation derives its strength from the collaborative process, taking feedback from those who care most and live closest to these public safety challenges. This includes law enforcement. It's been a very difficult few weeks for the policing community. We have seen a number of police officers killed in the line of action. If you have an opportunity to see one of our first responders and our police officers in particular, say thank you. They're putting their lives at risk to help defend the well-being and the safety of communities right across Canada. When a police officer is killed in action, it's not just the individual family who is suffering a great tragedy. The entire policing community across Canada is hurting. They would appreciate your support right now. So to those who are in attendance at the funeral of Constable Pinizzotto today, know that the Government of Canada is thinking of you, and we are grateful for the service that you deliver to Canada every day. Thank you. It's an honour to be with you today.
Thank you very much, Minister, and very well said, in particular, the last point on police. A few years ago, Dan Matheson and I was a good friend. He was mayor of Stratford for around 20 years, up until recently. He kept on bringing up a name, Ysni Semsedini, star in hydro and doing wonderful things there, real innovative thinking, great leadership, and it's great to celebrate very good public servants like that. I didn't give it a second thought after that, but then I saw that London Hydro had decided that Ysni would lead the organization. We're very fortunate to have someone like Ysni, frankly, who's thoughtful, down to earth, and really knows what's needed in this community from a hydro perspective. Copper theft is being responded to, as we just heard, by the federal government, but individual organizations have the ability to put in place innovative approaches to counter the threat of theft, and London Hydro has been able to do that. Of course, that is the result of the work of staff. That is the result of the support of the board, and I see Tanya here. Thank you very much for your leadership as well. But it comes from a vision that the leader sets out. And Ysni is second to none, in my view, and the view of many others, in terms of what he contributes. Ysni, please join us at the podium. Thank you very much for what you do.
You'll be happy to know I paid Peter $20 to say all those nice things about me. Before I get started, I have some prepared remarks today, but one of the things that I want to talk, staff is very aware of this, but maybe some others in the public are not. The reason we're here today, the reason we've been talking about copper theft for the last year and a half, is because of the safety issue. At London Hydro, we believe in safety first always. And when we look at the damage being done to our infrastructure and asking staff to have to go down into manholes and start to piece together what's happened in a vault that has 27,000 volts just feet away, it's a safety issue first. And that's the reason that we've spent so much time on this issue of copper theft. Yes, it costs money, but that's not what drives us. And it really is the safety issue for our staff. And I thank all of them for answering the call as they always do, for putting themselves at risk to go down in these manholes that have now been tampered with and not having a full understanding of what they're walking into. So this is the reason London Hydro has pushed this issue wherever we can, federally, provincially, with the city, with police service, who's been a great partner in trying to help us catch these criminals. I also like to say thank you to all of our employees who are thinking of innovative ways to catch people and protect our infrastructure. We've just started a new technology where we actually can detect the tilt on our manhole covers to know that if somebody's accessing our systems, that we can have police there to apprehend the criminals. And I think we had this happen about 3 weeks ago, where we were able to apprehend some people trying to access our infrastructure before they got in there and they were able to do damage. We had a story last year, which you may remember, that was covered by local media. In the story, we had a bridge crossing that some perpetrators came into in the early morning and tried to cut out copper. Unfortunately, it wasn't the neutral copper that they were trying to get to. They actually cut into live 27,000 volt conductor. There was a fire and an explosion. That bridge was then unusable for us to be able to bring infrastructure through. How somebody didn't die that morning, I'll never be sure. No PPE, trying to saw into a live 27,000 volt cable, causing an explosion. It took us 8 or 9 months to reroute power in that area. We had to go from underground to overhead because the bridge was unusable. We spent over $1.1 million last year in correcting the damage caused by these people as they go into our critical infrastructure. So this is a big day for us, and I'd like to thank Minister Fraser for being here. I'd like to thank our local MPs for being here as well. Peter, Arielle, thank you for making it down here and supporting this. Mayor Morgan, always a champion of London Hydro. I think staff have seen the mayor more in the last year than they probably have in the lifetime of this organization. Corinne, from our board perspective, thank you. Tanya, as a chair, clear leadership and knowing that we respect customers first and it's always safety here. So this is a big announcement for us, and I'd just like to say thank you. I had some prepared remarks, but since I took 7 minutes telling the story, I will cut those short. I know everyone is here to talk about the great legislation that the federal government brought through. Again, thanking Minister Fraser for being here. I think it really says something about the importance that this government places on safety, both for our employees and also the public at large. So with that, I will turn it back over to Peter. Peter, thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing more today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ysni. I know there are media in the room, and I'm going to call upon Luis Carlos from the Department of Justice to moderate questions and answers.
Hello, bonjour. Thank you for joining us today for this announcement. Merci de vous joindre à nous aujourd'hui pour cette annonce. We will now begin the question and answer session. Nous allons maintenant amorcer la période de questions et réponses. As usual, we will go with one question and one follow-up. Le format est d'une question avec un suivi. S'il vous plaît, posez vos questions dans la langue officielle de votre choix. Feel free to ask your question in either official language. Please identify yourself with your name, your news outlet, and whom your question is for.
Do you want me to go to the mic?
Yeah, or you can. I think we can. Can we?
Can I get the minister up here so I can frame it?
When you're dealing with criminal justice, framing someone has a particular meaning. So.
Hi, yeah, it's Brian Bicknell from CTV News. Minister, I'm just wondering, I understand what you're saying about the value of the product, the copper being stolen versus the value of the damage. So I'm just wondering, is stealing copper still considered a property crime, or is it now become a criminal code violation? And if it's a property crime, I guess the question is, how do we get police to enforce it? Because I know they're obviously very busy with bigger crimes, guns, drugs, etc. And property crimes are sort of further down the list. So how do we get enforcement?
First, thanks very much for the question. And it's not as though there's a single rule that can be applied in all circumstances, because, of course, the consequences of a crime, if you're dealing with in a behavior that causes damage to a person, though it might have been targeting property, of course, the specific charges that may flow would result on the unique factual underpinning of that case. It's possible when you're dealing with an explosion, as was just discussed, that a person could be hurt, and courts and Crowns would usually factor that in to their assessment when they're determining which charges to move forward with. If you're targeting solely property and those are the only consequences, it could still be considered property crime, but that doesn't mean it has to be treated as less serious than other crimes that take place in our communities. The key part that I hope we can deliver an understanding of today is that when you're committing a property crime that targets essential infrastructure, that's going to be taken more seriously as a result of this change, because we recognize the consequences, not only in terms of the damages that result to society, that results in higher prices for ratepayers or for customers or inconveniences for communities as a whole, but there is a heightened safety concern as well. So despite the fact that when you're dealing with copper theft, when it does target essential infrastructure, you're going to see it taken more seriously with more serious penalties as a result of the change that we made in the criminal code last week.
So is it deterrent-based only, or are you confident that police will have the resources to be able to enforce copper theft?
So this particular change is going to have a disincentive based on the deterrent impact of a harsher sentence for people who target essential infrastructure. There's a separate conversation that we need to have as a community, as in this case a province, or as a country, when it comes to the adequate resourcing of the public safety apparatus more broadly. There are responsibilities of different levels of government when you're dealing with public safety. Obviously, the criminal code is a responsibility of the federal government. Policing typically falls to cities or provinces, as the case may be. But this conversation is going to engage not only questions of costs for cities and provinces that are going to have to ensure that they have the boots on the ground. It's also going to require that we look at what resources in terms of the tools that law enforcement has access to. One example is there's a bill that's just been going through Parliament around the issue of lawful access, as crime is increasingly committed with the use of digital technology and the police powers to access information of criminal organizations who are often engaged in widespread schemes that target essential infrastructure. We've got laws that are 30 years behind most of our competitors and partners around the world. By making sure that we give access to the legislative tools that will allow police to more quickly have access to information that would allow them to not only bust an individual who's committed a crime, but going up the chain in criminal organizations to understand where people may be impacted. That's going to be as important a question as to the resources that are deployed at a community level. So it's a long way of saying, yes, it's a question of both harsher penalties and resources, but the change that we hope to draw attention to today is focused on that higher penalty in the criminal code.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Dale Carruthers from the London Free Press, and my question's for the Minister. Minister, can you speak specifically how this bill will target organized crime members, specifically outlaw motorcycle gang members who have a strong presence here in London?
Certainly. So this particular change in this bill around essential infrastructure will be agnostic as to who is committing the crime. However, when you look at the participation of criminal organizations in crimes that target essential infrastructure, I do expect it will have a disproportionate impact by sending a signal to the people that they're recruiting that there's going to be a harsher penalty. In addition to the change made on the specific provision that targets essential infrastructure, a theme throughout this bill, the two main themes are that we're targeting violent repeat offenders and violent crimes that are tied to criminal organizations, whether that engages home invasions or auto theft, whether it is drug trafficking, human trafficking, whether it's crimes targeting our essential infrastructure. Overwhelmingly, the provisions that we put into this particular piece of legislation target either people or crimes that are endemic to high volume repeat offenders or to crimes that line the pockets of criminal organizations. So with respect to your question, you'll see not only the provision targeting essential infrastructure, but each of the provisions on both the bail and sentencing side of the equation very specifically draw attention and increase penalties and make it more difficult for bail to be granted when you're dealing with crimes that are tied to, known to be tied to criminal organizations.
Okay, and just a follow-up. Quebec is exploring legislation to ban the wearing of gang-related clothing, such as motorcycle gang patches. Is that something that you could possibly introduce in the future or you'd be looking at?
Right now, we haven't been looking at targeting specifically symbols for different clubs, as the case may be. I use that term loosely because it could apply to obviously innocuous clubs or criminal organizations. Where we have taken a step in this direction is when we're dealing with organizations that are listed terror organizations, those who are engaged in the willful promotion of hatred against an entire people based on their identity. We have taken a step in this direction to recognize if you're willfully promoting hatred using a known hate symbol or the symbol of a terror organization, it can attract a higher degree of criminal responsibility. What we're seeing is when you're using those kinds of hate symbols, the victim is often not only the individual who may be victimized by the perpetration of hate, but an entire community. So to the extent we've taken a step in this space, it has been more to reflect the fact that we know there's harms that reverberate through entire communities based on a shared identity, rather than singling out individual clubs. It's more about the activities that they engage in, rather than a specific organization, with the exception of officially listed terrorist organizations.
Thank you.
I don't see any hands up, so if there are no more questions, we will wrap up today's session. Thank you, merci all very much for participating today. If you have any further questions about today's announcement, please contact the Department of Justice Communications at media@justice.gc.ca. Si vous avez des questions complémentaires, veuillez communiquer avec les relations avec les médias en media@justice.gc.ca. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.